Hello, and welcome to Adventures with ADHD, where I get to interview fabulous neurodivergent people who share their stories, insights, and tips. Welcome, Laura Payne.
Hello, Susie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you today. I'm so excited to be able to hear your story and to let you share it with everyone else. So let's dive straight in. Laura, tell me a bit about you and what it is you do.
Hello, everyone. My name's Laura. I am the founder of Blooming Bookkeeping, which is my own little business. It's just me at the moment. And I offer, on the simplest level, bookkeeping services for sole traders and small businesses in Brighton and the UK.
Fabulous, thank you. And I know personally how valuable having a bookkeeper is because I'm ADHD and one of my real struggles is things around bookkeeping. So it's such a valuable job that you're doing. So tell us a
Yeah.
bit about yourself and how you came to learn that you are ADHD.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing that I'll mention is that bookkeeping is not something that I ever thought that I would end up doing.
Right.
It's a profession, I suppose, that I sort of fell into after a long, well, a long career, I guess, of working in jobs and becoming burnt out, and finally realizing that I needed to do something differently in order to learn how to work with myself.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think it was about 15 years ago now, and that was after the second time that I had dropped out of university.
Right.
Um, and leading up to that, I guess and this is probably a story that a lot of people will relate to, but when I was quite young, when I was in primary school, I didn't have to do any work to go well at school. Everything was quite easy. I didn't have to put in any effort really, and I was labeled as gifted and talented when I was quite young, and that was something that became very much a sort of core part of my sense of self-worth when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
then when I got into secondary school and I had to start doing things like homework and organizing my time, and doing assignments, written assignments in particular, I found very difficult. That's when things started to become quite difficult.
Mm.
And I had a lot of struggles with school at that point. But I guess my teachers didn't really know a lot about ADHD and especially ADHD in girls. And
Mm.
it wasn't recognized that maybe there was something like that going on for me. I was just labeled as lazy and disorganized and a chronic
Wow.
procrastinator. So I was late for everything, and I didn't have any understanding of why that might be, of why I was doing that. And
Mm.
so I internalized a lot of those labels that were sort of put upon me at that time. And I dropped out of my last year of secondary school and repeated a year. And then I went to university the first time and completely failed all five of my subjects in the first
Oh,
semester
wow.
and dropped out. And then sort of went back to work and then tried to go to university again about 18 months later, and the same thing happened, and it just all fell in a heap.
Gosh.
And I guess that pattern of starting something, so like a university course or a qualification or a new job, and then trying really, really hard to kind of force myself into working in a particular way and to forcing myself into the narrative that I thought was expected of me. And it going okay for a time because I was working extremely hard to kind of
Mm.
keep up appearances like everything was fine, and then ending up just completely burning out and my mental health suffering. And I thought that it was just an issue with myself, just my ability to motivate myself to work. and problems with depression and stuff like that. But eventually getting a diagnosis of ADHD was pretty life changing at that time.
Yeah.
Uh, I was seeing a therapist then, who was the first person that had kind of suggested that maybe that there was something else going on there,
Yeah.
and that it wasn't just depression, and that there wasn't sort of some big character flaw within me that just
Yeah.
made it so that I couldn't work.
Gosh.
Um, so yeah, that was a big sort of discovery for me then, and but also on the same level, there was still that a part of me that thought that there was quite a bit of shame attached with that
Mm.
label of ADHD, and that for me, actually, maybe it was actually still just something that was wrong with me that I was doing wrong. And that is all just that like internalized shame
Yeah.
that comes with kind of growing up being undiagnosed, and there not being any kind of understanding around that.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up I had a job. I was working in the veterinary industry for a long time, so I was a veterinary nurse, which I loved. I loved
Wow.
the animals, and it was kind of like a natural progression to me to being a practice manager, um, which I tried very hard to do, but realized at some point that I just absolutely hated being a manager,
Right.
and ended up quitting, and got a job working for an accountant, just doing like admin because I needed some money coming in while I worked out what the hell I was going to do after sort of yet another period
Mm.
of burnout in my life. And yeah, discovered bookkeeping, which was, is a sort of very rules based, detailed, number based work, and realizing that that's something that really appealed to the way that my brain kind of works. I didn't
Yeah.
even really know that bookkeeping was something that people did as a job. But yeah, it kind of went from there. There were bookkeepers that were working there, and then I ended up, well, then it was COVID. So there was all of that, and I ended up getting a qualification during COVID to be a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually kind of fell into that line of work. And I guess it also scratches the itch that I have for um, just doing lots of different work. So I am a bookkeeper for lots of different small businesses. So
Yeah.
I get to talk to lots of people that are running lots of different kinds of businesses, and my work is always a little bit different. But then I also get the side of being able to kind of hyper focus on quite detailed, complicated rules-based work, which is, my brain can kind of get stuck into that, and I can do it
Yeah.
for hours on end, sometimes to
Wow.
my own detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That hyper focus, sometimes it can be hard to get back out of it, can't it?
exactly. And also like learning to hyper focus on the right things.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of one of the challenges that I have is with that is that I really need to understand exactly how everything works. So if I don't understand how something works, then I have to find out now before I do anything else, and then that can end up
Yes.
kind of like snowballing. But I try to kind of like catch myself before I get there. Um, but I think as far as me starting my own business, I was working for an accounting firm, um, and I realized that this cycle of burnout was happening kind of yet again.
Yeah.
So I was trying very hard to fit into um, a 9 to 5 office job. I hadn't disclosed, and I had never disclosed that I had ADHD or sought any sort of help
Mm.
from my employers around that. And in hindsight, that is probably something that I should have done, and would have made my life a lot easier if I had had the courage to say something. Um, Especially now, like it's something that's talked about
Yeah.
so much more often in
Can
in workplaces.
can I ask you what stopped you? Because a lot of people will be having similar thoughts. They're afraid to disclose. So what stopped you?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things. Mostly, I think it was just having that internalized shame
Mm,
about not being able to work in the way that I thought that other people were able to work, and it seemed to come quite easily to them. They weren't, going into the toilets at lunchtime and breaking down.
mm,
Uh, and I guess it's embarrassment that you can't do things in the same way
mm,
that other people can, and thinking that that is a deficit and something that people are going to hold against you. And for me, it was very much, I thought that they would fire me. I thought that if
right.
I told them, that they would say, like, well, then unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go. And that was a real fear.
Yeah,
I didn't want to lose my job. And I'd say the odds of that happening would have been pretty low, but that's the fear that I had, and I had never disclosed that to any of my employers. Um, but I would encourage anyone, if you're in that situation, if you're employed, and you haven't told your employers, and there are things that can be done to just work a bit differently, um, and just to make your life a bit easier and to set you up for actually succeeding in what you're doing.
yeah,
Um, and I think for me, starting the business and deciding to go self-employed is what I needed to do for myself to set myself up,
yeah,
and to be able to succeed in what I was doing. And it's been life-changing, um, being able to work in a way that works for me, not having to force myself into being someone else. So I think there's definitely a pattern of sort of like trying to become some other person
yeah,
rather than, so that I can fit into the expectations that I think are on me, um, rather than understanding how I work and trying to fit everything else around me rather than me trying to fit myself around everything else.
yeah.
Um, and I think that certainly in the work that I do, so I'm working with other with people that are running small businesses as well. And this is kind of the other reason that I started the business, was that I wanted to work with people in a different way than I was able to when I was employed. So I could, there were a lot of times when I would be in meetings with accountants and with clients. I could sense that the way that the clients were being communicated with, um, that I could sense that maybe there was a bit of neurodivergence in the room,
Mm,
and that the way that the information around like finance and bookkeeping and accounting was being communicated was just not working. And I felt that there was a better way that it could be done, and that I wanted to form those kind of close relationships with clients that I kind of wasn't able to when I was working for quite a big firm, and you just had to really kind of churn out the work.
mm,
Um, and I started the business not particularly thinking like, oh, I'm going to work with neurodivergent business owners. Um, and that's sort of certainly not all that I do, but I'm kind of at a point now where I've had so many conversations professionally and just socially and personally with people who are neurodivergent, who are either running their own business, or they want to start their own business, or they want to have a bit of a side hustle, or whatever. But the administration side of things, the money side of things, the finance and organization and all that kind of thing is just overwhelming for them. And that if they could have someone that um, was that kind of had lived experience, and like, I know what overwhelm feels like. I know what shame feels like, and embarrassment, and all those things, all those feelings that people have um, around their finances and admin. That if I could be that person that they could come to, and we could just have like a really non-judgmental, friendly conversation about it. And like maybe they need Maybe they need checklists for their bookkeeping that they need to do for their own business, or maybe they need a really kind of structured approach, like we're going to have a monthly meeting on the first Monday
Mm.
of the month. Or, they want to have Zoom meetings where the camera's off, or they just want to be able to kind of send a WhatsApp message when they have a question. They don't want to have to wait for a meeting or write a
Yeah,
formal email. That I can kind of be that person for them and kind of hold their
yeah,
hand a little bit and kind of relieve some of that pressure.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
that's kind of, but there's a lot there, but yeah, that's sort of
Yeah. Well,
where
that
I've
no,
ended up.
that's amazing. And so why do you think finances can be overwhelming for ADHD and otherwise neurodivergent folk?
I think that there's definitely something there with like bookkeeping and kind of the finance side of business, is like a really important side of running a business for obvious reasons. But if you don't understand it and if you kind of don't give it the attention that it needs, it can become out of control, and it kind
Mm,
of it can become this bigger and bigger kind of monster lurking in the cupboard. I mean, certainly that's what it feels like, that it's kind of this big scary thing that isn't understood. And if, especially when you're kind of dealing with like HMRC, and maybe you're going to have to like call HMRC and you don't really know what you're talking about, and you don't want to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. So, just kind of putting it in the too hard basket and not dealing with it. And it becomes this bigger and bigger problem. And ultimately, money can be something that does become a big problem when you ignore it. Um, and then there's the feelings of shame around, not being able to deal with money. I think a
yeah,
lot of neurodivergent people kind of feel that and have experienced that. Um, and there's just sort of like, I guess, a sense of like embarrassment around like I should be able to deal with these things. If I'm running my own business, I should be able to
mm,
handle all of this, but I haven't dealt with it, and now it's a bit of a mess. And just being embarrassed about things not being perfect,
yeah,
and that's kind of that's been a really kind of like recurring theme for me. As I mean, I would describe myself as a recovering
mm,
perfectionist. Um, thinking that things that you have to have all of your ducks in a row and that things have to be perfect before you can let anyone else kind of look at it. Um, and that's a really big thing that I have learnt. Um, is that if you wait for things to be perfect before you do anything, um, you're probably just not really going to get very far, because perfection doesn't really, it doesn't really exist.
no,
Um, and the more you kind of put off, um, taking a step, or doing something like contacting a bookkeeper because you need to get your bookkeeping in order for your
mm,
business, because you need to do your tax return or whatever. But also just things like starting a business or talking to your employer, or any of those things. If you kind of wait for things to feel like it's going to be the exact right moment, you're going to be holding yourself back
yeah,
quite a lot. And you just have
yeah.
to feel the fear and jump in and kind of do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and recognize that a lot of these fears are kind of from way back, and it is
Yeah,
safe to ask for support now. To ask the right people, of course. Some people aren't
yeah,
going to be helpful, but there's so many supportive people out there, and to have a bookkeeper that gets it and is not going to is not going to shame you, like, oh, haven't you got all your receipts,
exactly.
and make that, you know, I mean, it's so important. And shame, perfectionism is something that you've talked about, and it sounds like a recurring theme through your
Yeah.
life. And what would you say to people that do have that shame around their ways of being? Because I certainly used to.
Yeah, I think for me, my inner monologue, so my inner critic is it can be like just deafeningly loud and like incessant with the criticism, and that is, all sort of based in shame. Um, I think befriend your inner critic is probably, learn to kind of acknowledge that part of yourself, and at the end of the day, it is yourself. So, learning to just be a bit less harsh on that side of yourself, kind of acknowledging that you're feeling a particular way, um, acknowledging the thought that you're kind of having about yourself. Um, and you don't have to believe it. It's not that, it doesn't mean that whatever that kind of voice is saying to you is actually true. So befriend your inner critic, and I think this is something that I might have spoken about with you at some point. Is, you can even name them
Yeah,
and kind of like give a name to your inner critic, so you've kind of got someone that you can. Um, it's sort of something that you can direct kind of a conversation about
yeah,
towards.
yeah,
Um, and I think for me, a big thing has been learning to trust myself, like learning to show up for myself and learning that I do have something valuable to offer to people, and that, um, if I'm thrown into the deep end, like I feel like I have definitely jumped in the deep end with doing this podcast interview,
yeah,
um, that I will come up with something. That I think reminding yourself of what you do have to offer and the message that you do want to convey to people, that there is something valuable there, and that you can do it anyway, even if you feel like things are a bit of a mess, or if you feel, if you've got that inner critic is really loud, that you can kind of move forward and do it anyway. I
yeah,
think, messy progression in the general trajectory of where you kind of think you want to go is better than, kind of staying stuck in the same
yeah,
place. And it's
yeah,
okay for it to kind of not be perfect and for things to just kind of be a bit all over the place, because, some people are just a bit all over the place, and that is fine.
yeah. And that is okay. And yeah, that's it. Staying stuck is really frustrating and can really bring up more feelings of shame. But when you start taking messy, imperfect action, something happens, doesn't it? And people can reflect on this all the time. You feel a bit better, you feel a bit more
Yeah.
motivated, you get a bit more dopamine. So you get the
Yeah.
dopamine when you start taking action. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I was
yeah,
going to say, like, getting a bit of momentum, I
yes,
think, is a really big thing. And sometimes that can literally be, I'm going to get out of bed and have a shower.
yeah,
Like that. Sometimes it's something as small as that. Um, and then that can kind of snowball into, like, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do 10 minutes of planning for this business that I want to start, or I'm going to do 10 minutes of planning for, my social media for my business, which is definitely something I need to do personally. But yeah, just do those little tasks that kind of, so that you can learn to trust yourself, that there are things that you can do and you can make forward progression, get that bit of momentum going, and take your inner critic along the way with you for the
yeah.
ride.
Exactly. It's that protector part, isn't it? So it's not going anywhere, but the when I'm talking about this stuff, it's you can make it quieter and then you can make your compassionate voice louder. And if you do that
Exactly.
over and over again, like and I mean over and over again, the compassion takes first place, and the
Yeah,
inner critic's always there to remind you, like, oh, be careful. Oh,
that's
it's
it.
like, yes, thank you for that, but we're okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you said, it doesn't go anywhere, and it is a daily practice, I think,
Mm.
to listen to that voice and acknowledge it, and
Yeah.
to reassure yourself I think a lot of it is yeah, just kind of being the person that you needed a long time ago, and reassuring yourself and kind of taking those parts of you along with you,
Yeah.
doing it anyway.
Yeah, and this is powerful stuff, and I sometimes wonder if people realize quite how powerful it is. So what I always tell people is just try it and see what happens. You notice, don't you, if what
Yeah,
happens if you're being kind to yourself, you might feel a bit better than if you were being, joining in with your inner critic or
yeah,
taking it as truth, because it doesn't make you feel good. And, if we can
no,
make ourselves feel better, then we're more likely to kind of take that time to plan in our businesses and get going. So yeah, really, really great tips.
yeah.
So is there anything now you're self-employed, is there anything you put into place, routines or boundaries to stop you burning out again?
Absolutely. So I think there's a couple of different areas that I have, um, and this is very much a learning process for me. It's an ongoing thing. I'm still
Mm,
working out how to do this. I feel like I'm kind of really at the beginning of um, my self-employment journey, for want of a better word. Um, but so listening to my tiredness. So when I was employed, you work 9 to 5 and it's expected that you're working that entire time, which is even, for anyone, I think is like, it's a lot. So
Billy.
yeah, it's crazy. But I think, recognizing when I'm hitting a wall and that
Mm,
there is no point in bashing my head against that brick wall and just trying to keep going because it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I have to keep going until 5 p.m. That's when people expect you to work. Kind of softening that stance towards myself and softening that message and listening to my brain when I am hitting that wall that it's time to just like knock off for the day. Not going to do any more work. Or if there's really something that needs doing, that I will do that earlier on in the day and save the kind of easier work for later on in the day.
yeah,
So kind of structuring my day in that way and listening to my brain when it's telling me that it's time to stop.
yeah.
Um, and one of the other kind of big struggles I have is just getting started doing a
Mm,
particular thing. So I can kind of in the morning when I kind of want to sit down and work, it can be really difficult to kind of get hooked into doing something. And it can take me a really long time to actually sit down and focus on what I'm doing. So I can, it can be for any number of reasons and be like, oh, I'm going to get myself a cup of coffee. So I'll go
I
and do
do
that.
that all the time.
And then like, I'm going to go to the toilet. So I'll go to the toilet and like, I'll just stick a load of washing on. Um, and actually it's a bit hot. So I'm going to get the fan. And now I want a cold drink. So I'm going to go and get that. So it's literally on my laptop now. I have like a checklist of things that I go through each morning before I start. And one of them is the first one is literally get your drinks, coffee, water, and something tasty. So then I have all three of the drinks that I could possibly need. And
Brilliant.
yeah, and then just like go to the loo, put your phone on airplane mode, clear the clutter around your desk, get comfy. Like, do you need the fan? Do you need warm socks? Like, literally got this written down
Yeah,
on my laptop. And so once I go through all of those things, sometimes it can take like half an hour, but it's fine because
yeah,
I've planned it.
yeah,
And then it's almost like a ritual that
yeah,
I go through, so that I can then kind of sit down and get started on what I'm doing. And I do, I don't know, probably heard of like the Pomodoro technique, where it's
mm,
like 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
yeah,
Or sometimes I even shorten it to like 10 minutes on if
yeah,
I'm really struggling, and just, using those techniques. But also just like not forcing myself to work full-time hours because my brain it doesn't work on that level for that amount of time. It just
yeah.
doesn't.
No, yeah, and that's such good, it's really good to bring that up because even when people go from employment to self-employment, that conditioning has been there since the day we started school, isn't it?
Yeah,
You do it at this time, and it takes a while to unlearn that. Well, it takes a long time to unlearn that, and also to listen to your limits and your needs as well. So some really golden nuggets, and I love that ritual of your so that you've like get your drinks rather than in out in out. I mean, that must
yeah,
save so much time as well.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
does. It does. And I think that that's been a real struggle being self-employed is I don't have anyone standing over my shoulder. It's a blessing and a curse.
Mm.
You know, it kind of means that sometimes it's a bit harder to kind of focus on what I'm doing and to get stuff done in that kind of structured way.
Yeah.
But you know, you kind of have to give yourself that structure, do what you need to do. Everyone's different as well. Everyone kind of
Of course.
struggles with different aspects of all of
Yeah.
this.
And
Um,
to be flexible with that structure as well. Sometimes with the best will in the world, I just cannot focus and I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to go for a swim, you know?
yeah,
And listening to your needs in that way as well. Because I
yeah,
know when I'm going to get stuff done, and then other
yeah,
times I'm just like, hold on a minute, it's not happening. I'll
yeah.
try again later or tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the best things I think for me being self-employed is that you can ride that wave of,
Yeah.
you know, focus and creativity and momentum and getting stuff done. Ride the wave when it comes and hyper focus and kind of get loads of stuff done. But then equally, if it's just not happening for you, you can, you know, give yourself permission to just have a bit of an easy day or have a nothing day if you can afford it. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's been one of the sort of biggest things is, you know, being able to kind of ebb and flow with the way
Yeah.
that my brain works rather than just being forced to do everything at the time that you're supposed to do it at, because we've all just agreed on some
Yeah.
kind of arbitrary like way of working.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh, some really great insights. Thank you so much. So, how do people get in touch with you if they should need a bookkeeper?
So I have a website. It's bloomingbookkeeping.online. So there's lots of double letters in there, but bloomingbookkeeping.online. But also on Instagram. So my Instagram is Laura, Laura underscore bookkeeps. So BOOKKEEPS. Laura underscore bookkeeps. Um,
Brilliant.
and it doesn't just have to be, you know, people that need a bookkeeper or want a bookkeeper. If you just want to chat about anything that's spoken about today, or just chat about, you know, what do you need to do to go self-employed and start a business. Like if you just want to kind of have a bit of a chat about what that might look like, I'm also happy to
Oh,
do that
great.
and connect with anyone in that way.
Brilliant. That's really generous of you. And we will put your links in the show notes so people will be able to click on those links. So
Great. Thank you.
brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been fabulous having you on.
Thanks, Susie.